When I discovered student affairs late in my undergraduate career, I was drawn to it primarily because of academic advising. So I knew at that point, even though I would say looking back on it, what did I even know about it? I mean, nothing really, but I think I felt like I advised myself really well. Like, look at me, I'm so good at advising. I can go do this for other people. And so that's always what I was really drawn to and what I was kind of interested in planning on. But I think also during graduate school, I mean, I did a variety, I mean, my story sounds very similar to yours. I worked like 4 different places at different times, and I did a little bit of student org advising. I did a little bit of, it was like running a service learning program, so that connection to the academic, the curricular, but also kind of supervising students, and a variety of other things. And I think from those experiences, I realized what I didn't really want to do, and I learned that I really liked the counseling and the relationships that I got to build with the students in the student org. I knew that I wasn't as interested in student org advising. And so I think that kind of tailored where I was going to, even though it's ironic because those were the things that I was maybe a little bit more qualified for. You know, I didn't do any academic advising when I was in graduate school. So I think if you can pick those transferable skills that you're gaining now and the experiences that you have and how they might relate to, kind of the potential functional area where you want to go. I also think it might be okay if you feel aimless and you feel like you're not sure what that dream job is. I felt like I had my dream job when I got it, and I have loved it, and it's been so great. But now it's not my dream job anymore. Now I'm ready to grow and continue moving, and so I think that happens a lot, even if you stay in the same functional area. But I mean, I have a colleague in my office who worked in housing for 7-8 years, and now he's in academic advising. So you can go all over the place to find that best fit for you if you're focused on finding something that's, more or less fits kind of your main priorities.
I came to student affairs a little bit differently. So between undergrad and grad school, I was a staff member at Teach for America. So it's really that sort of the knowledge of ed inequity that sort of pushed me into wanting to look at multicultural affairs at the collegiate level. So it's not, I think it's totally valid to pull in your interests from elsewhere too, and to see how those, apply to higher ed. I think to answer your question, first of all, I don't think you're aimless, and I think it's totally okay. And secondly, I think that's, to answer your question, that's sort of the connection for me in terms of the work I want to do. But is this my dream job, working, with student orgs in the Multicultural Center? I don't think so, right? But it's the job for now that I think is going to help build me to sort of work in an ed equity capacity and sort of a different type of capacity later on. And now being here, I'm learning so much, that applies to higher ed. I'm seeing how it sort of connects back to that interest of mine. So I spend I meet every week with TJ and Maggie and Megan about Greek life, because that's one of the things that I do as a component of my work. And at first I didn't think, that could connect back to that sort of ed equity perspective, but it totally does. So just to keep your an open mind, basically, to see how other things can sort of tie in.
And you never know what kind of experience that you've had may pay off later. So I got training in graduate school on motivational interviewing techniques in a conduct setting, just kind of on a large. It wasn't part of any organized thing that I was doing or formal thing that I was doing. But it helped me get the second-year assistantship that I got, and then the job that I have now both utilizes those techniques, but I manage the basic sanction that we use, which was founded in motivational interviewing and counseling techniques. And so just something I did to learn a little bit more in grad school paid off and became something I'm actually really interested and passionate about and trying to apply more and get better at. So you never know what kind of weird things come back later on when you're oh, I remember talking about these things in undergrad, and now I have a new perspective and a different frame of reference for them.
I think one of the exciting and frustrating things about student affairs is it's such a broad area, right? And so there's so many different people doing so many different things, which for folks who have a lot of interest, it's great. It allows you to continue to grow and develop and learn, which I think for a majority of folks who are in this field, that's a big part of why you're doing what you're doing is you're helping others, but you're also learning yourself. And so I think, taking a look at even where you all are having internships and assistantships and working right now says a lot about, the variety and diversity that's available in positions. And I think that provides a wonderful opportunity once you enter the field as a professional to make some of those same movements and continue some of those same connections. And that's a huge part of what I enjoy about my job as well is, working with folks like Will and Vinika on how do we integrate the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis and make that happen for our students as well. And so I think it provides a little bit different maybe than even the academic side of things where it's, I'm going to do this within academics, this specific discipline. I feel in student affairs, at some way or another, you're always going to be interacting with another office that's providing a different service, and you're working in that collaborative environment, and it really offers opportunities to move between those as well, which is awesome. And I think something to keep in mind as you search for that job and say, okay, well, I'm going to take a position here, and it might not be exactly what I want to do, but there's still ways for me to be involved in the things that I want to do within that as well.
I have a follow-up question. I also feel like I'm monopolizing the floor here. Okay. So I've talked to somebody, I've had many conversations about this topic. It's very important to me in my life, obviously. One of the things that I've heard is that not every job is going to be a good fit. We've talked about that. But being picky in that aspect of not just applying for every job that I'm qualified for. So kind of like words on how to weed out the ones that aren't good for me. But then another part that comes with that, I feel, is understanding what the job description actually means. So like Vinika's position is an interesting title, and
Yeah.
if I had just read the title, I would have no idea what that means.
Right.
So just kind of those two things, if you have any words on that.
That I never thought about that, but that's so true. My title is Organizational Development Specialist, and it's a new position, and so it's sort of in flux. And I think that what the things I actually end up doing are kind of a little bit different than what the description might read or what it was originally intended. But it's all in a good way. I don't know what to tell you. I would say maybe have your non-negotiables. Like, what are those things? So is it content area or location, or those things that the specific things you're looking for, the types of skills you want to gain, experiences you want to have, and if you see those reflected in those job bullet points of the description, that might suggest it's a good fit. And of course, when you're interviewing, if you don't vibe at all with the people you're interviewing with, do you really want to work with them? The time I think to start applying for everything and anything is November, next November, right? When you're I need to pay my rent. And,
Student loans have run out.
that's what
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on. I think sometimes there are times in life that you have to apply for everything and anything. My partner got a job here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I applied for anything and everything I was qualified for because we had to pay the rent. We just had to, and there was some things that I was I'm applying for this, and I'm not excited about it, and it probably showed up in my cover letter. I think it probably just did. And so there are going to be times in your life that you have to do that because you have a kid to feed, or rent to pay, or student loans, or whatever it is. So I think if you can be picky, great. Be picky, that's awesome, and take advantage of it when you can. But thinking of those non-negotiables, so I'm in a position right now, everyone kind of said this, I threw out my 5-year plan, I was going to be a housing lifer, that's where I was going, and that just didn't work out. So I tossed out that 5-year plan, and I feel a little aimless too. I kind of feel I don't know what my dream job is. Just floating around, figuring it out. But figuring out what those non-negotiables are for me. So right now what I've realized is that I really miss supervising students. I miss it a ton. And so when I look at jobs, that absolutely has to be in the job description for me to even consider it, but I wouldn't know that if I wasn't in a position where I didn't get to supervise students. So I'm super thankful for the work that I get to do, and I think the work I get to do every day matters a lot. I get to interact and relate to students, but I really miss that supervision piece. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that was so important to me until I'm not doing it. So I don't know how you figure out those non-negotiables are. For me, it's not doing them, and I'm oh, I miss that. But I think doing that. And then I think it's important to have a guide and know where you want to go, but I think being married to this, like, I need to know where I'm going to be in 5 years, like, a lot can happen, and,
Yeah, we definitely have opinions on job track 5-year plans, don't we?
I'm curious what your opinions are.
My 5-year plan when I finished undergrad was to go into teaching, and did not work out at all like that in the way that I thought, but I still ended up in education, and it was something I was still passionate about. So it's similar to what Vinika said about just finding something you're interested in and finding a different way to do that. With the job postings, even looking beyond the non-negotiables, so new position, recently reworked position, brand new position. There's a lot more of that happening. I didn't know. I didn't want to say for sure. I was on TJ search. I was TJ search committee chair, so like I know that it was a reworked position. There's a lot more of that happening because the needs or responsibilities in higher ed have shifted so much recently, and so you may end up in a position that mine was like 7 bullet points, and I do all of those things and other duties as assigned, which ended up being probably another 15 bullet points of responsibilities or things that I chose to take on to challenge myself or just had an area of interest in. And then I got involved in advising and doing some other stuff outside of that. So, the job you apply for may not be the job you end up getting, if that makes sense. The work that you do may not match the job that you were hired into. But when you click with the people that hire you, with the department and the supervisor, they'll sit down with you if it's a good fit, especially, and they'll be like, so what do you want to get out of this experience? What are some other opportunities, some other areas that you want to work on? And they'll make space for that. So this upcoming year, this year, I'll be teaching the CP 125 Wisconsin Experience Seminar, which my supervisor was supportive of. So it was an opportunity for me to get back in the classroom and teach and work with students in a different way. And that's a good growth experience for me that not a lot of people may have support from their supervisor to do. And so those are things that you just need to figure out, like, what do I care about? And when you get on listservs for your campus, once you do start a job, you'll get tons and tons and tons of emails about different things that are going on and find out different ways to get more involved on that campus, and see that there are different ways to grow or make those connections and network with other people, and then potentially jump ship and move, because what you're doing doesn't interest you anymore. You kind of feel stale with it, and so you're like, okay, yeah, it's time for me to leave and move on. So the other thing I wanted to add, because we hadn't touched on it yet, was I know some folks in the room have some pre-graduate school experience working professionally, and I also, Nikki mentioned it, Maggie, I know has worked professionally, and it sounds like you probably did as well, work in some different areas before starting your program, maybe?
I did a AmeriCorps program.
Yeah, so in the job search, it can be really hard to figure out how to qualify that experience and make sure that it shows up, because it's going to be on your resume, maybe pre-master's degree, and so you don't want it to be discounted, because the experience I had working in residence life, for example, really prepared me for a lot of different challenging things that I now had to deal with post-masters. And so you want to make sure you can talk about that experience and relate it to the work that you're applying for, and make sure that it's strongly represented on your resume. So when somebody looks at it, they don't just be like, oh, that was before they did their master's. You don't want to be in a situation where 2, 4, 6, 12 years of work is just completely discounted because you decided to change careers.